Uniquely human conviction that good enough is often better than perfect. The best way to solve an impossible the Zephyrian Empire had ruled space for 3,000 years. Their ships were made of crystal that could stop any weapon. Their fleet was bigger than anything else in the galaxy. No one had ever beaten them in a fight. No one had ever even tried. Admiral Kexthara stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion. The ship was 5 miles long and carried enough weapons to destroy planets. Around it floated 46 other warships, each one deadly enough to end civilizations. They had come to this system to add another world to their empire. It was supposed to be easy work. The planet below was called Earth by its people, the humans. They had just learned to travel between stars. Their ships were small and weak. Their weapons were simple. The Zephyrians had done this 1,000 times before. They would demand surrender. The humans would give up or die. Then the empire would grow by one more world. Kexthara looked at the blue and green planet spinning below. It looked peaceful. The humans had sent messages asking to talk. They wanted to meet and learn about the galaxy. The admiral almost felt sorry for them. They had no idea what was coming. The sensor officer made a sound of confusion. Something was wrong with the readings. A new ship had just appeared at the edge of the system. It had dropped out of hyperspace without warning. The ship was not in their records. It did not match any known design. "Show me," Kexthara ordered. The main screen changed to show the unknown vessel. It was long and dark, made of metal instead of crystal. Strange parts stuck out from its hull. It was much smaller than the Zephyrian ships, only 2 miles long, but something about it made the admiral feel uneasy. "Where did it come from?" Kexthara asked. "Unknown, Admiral. It appeared without any hyperspace signature we recognize. The design is completely alien to our databases." Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance. He was 42 years old and had been fighting in space for 20 years. He had been chosen to command humanity's most advanced warship. The mission was simple: make first contact with alien civilizations and show them that humans were ready to join the galaxy. The ship around him was the best that Earth could build. It had taken 50 years to design and construct. Human engineers had studied crashed alien ships and learned their secrets. They had built new technologies that no one else had ever seen. The Defiance was humanity's announcement to the universe. "Sir, we're being scanned," said Lieutenant Amy Brooks from her station. She was the communications officer, young but smart. She had learned 17 alien languages preparing for this mission. "Let them look," Jake replied. "What do you see out there, Steve?" Commander Steve Parker was the tactical officer. He had been studying alien military tactics for years. He looked at his displays and whistled softly. 47 ships, Captain. All of them bigger than us. Those are Zephyrian designs. Crystal hulls, energy shields, the works. This is their main battle fleet." Jake nodded. They had known this might happen. Earth spies had learned about the Zephyrian Empire. The aliens controlled most of this part of space. They did not like to share. But humans had not come here to fight. They had come to talk. "Any response to our greeting?" Jake asked Amy. "Not yet, sir. But I'm picking up their military frequencies. They're talking about us?" On the Zephyrian flagship, the bridge crew was arguing. No ship had ever appeared in their space without permission. No species had ever ignored their warnings to stay away. The humans had been told to wait for contact. Instead, they had sent their own ship to meet the fleet. "It's a violation of Imperial law," said the tactical officer. "They should be destroyed as an example." "But look at the design," said the science officer. "This technology is unknown to us. We should study it first." Kexthara raised a hand for silence. The admiral was old even by Zephyrian standards. 3 centuries of conquest had taught patience, but this situation was new. The human ship was small, but it had appeared without warning. Their sensors could not read its hull properly. Something was blocking their scans. "Open a channel," the admiral ordered. all frequencies. The communication came through speakers all across the Defiance. The voice was translated by the ship's computers, but the tone was clear. It was the voice of someone used to being obeyed. Unknown vessel, you have entered Zephyrian space without permission. The system is under Imperial protection. You will surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your destruction. Jake looked around his bridge. His crew was ready. They had trained for this moment. Each person knew their job. Each system was working perfectly. The ship hummed with power. Amy, open a channel back to them. Channel open, sir. Jake spoke calmly. His voice carried the confidence of someone who had never backed down from a fight. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earthship Defiance. We come in peace-seeking diplomatic contact. We do not recognize your authority over this system or any claim to human space. We're here to talk, but we won't be surrendering to anyone. The silence that followed was complete. On 47 alien ships, crews stared at their communication systems. No one had ever spoken to the Zephyrian Empire like that. No one had ever refused their demands. Species either surrendered immediately or were wiped out. There was no third option. Kexthara felt something that had not been experienced in 3,000 years of conquest, confusion. The humans were not following the script. They should have been afraid. They should have begged for mercy. Instead, they spoke like equals. Sir, said the tactical officer, their ship is moving. The Defiance was indeed moving. It glided forward with smooth grace, heading directly toward the center of the Zephyrian formation. It showed no fear of the massive warship surrounding it. The human ship moved like a predator walking into a room full of prey. Jake watched the alien fleet on his screen. Their formation was perfect. Textbook positioning with overlapping fields of fire. It was the kind of setup designed to destroy anything that challenged them. But it was also predictable. Humans had been fighting wars for thousands of years. They knew how to read enemy tactics. Steve, what's their formation tell you? They're set up to overwhelm with superior firepower, sir. Classic doctrine for a technologically superior force. But they're not expecting real resistance. Look at those gaps in their coverage. I see them. Amy, anything more from their communications? They're confused, sir. Their officers are asking the Admiral for orders. I don't think they know what to do with us. Jake smiled. That was exactly what they had hoped for. The Zephyrian Empire was strong because they had never been challenged. Their tactics were designed for crushing weak enemies, not fighting equals. The human plan was simple. Make them think. Make them doubt. Make them realize that this fight would not go as expected. The Defiance continued its approach. Behind it, Earth waited for news. Ahead, an empire that had never known defeat prepared to learn what humans were capable of. The galaxy was about to change forever. Sir, Steve reported, they're charging their weapons. I see it. All stations, prepare for combat. But remember, we're not here to start a war. We're here to finish one before it begins. The first shot would be fired soon. When it was, the Zephyrian Empire would discover that humans did not fight. Like any enemy they had ever faced, they would learn that technological superiority meant nothing against tactical innovation. Most importantly, they would understand that some species cannot be intimidated, cannot be conquered, and will never bow to anyone. The battle for humanity's place in the galaxy was about to begin. The first blast from the Zephyrian dreadnought could have melted a moon. The beam of pure energy shot across space toward the human ship. It was the same weapon that had destroyed 1,000 worlds, the same power that had ended countless civilizations. The beam hit nothing but empty space. The Defiance was gone. Admiral Kexthara stared at the empty space where the human ship had been. The sensors showed nothing. No debris, no energy signature, no trace that a ship had ever been there. The Admiral's mind struggled to understand what had happened. Where did it go? Kexthara demanded. Unknown, Admiral. The ship simply vanished. No hyperspace signature detected, no cloaking field signatures. It just disappeared. 3 seconds later, the Defiance reappeared. It materialized 200 miles to the left of where it had been. The human ship sat in space as if nothing had happened, as if the most powerful weapon in the Zephyrian fleet had never been fired. Captain, Jake Morrison felt the ship shudder as the phase shift drive shut down. The experimental technology had worked perfectly. For a brief moment, the Defiance had existed outside normal space and time. The alien weapon had passed harmlessly through the area where they should have been. Phase shift complete, reported Chief Engineer Tony Rodriguez. All systems normal. Drive needs 30 seconds to recharge. Good work, Tony. Steve, what's their reaction? Commander Steve Parker studied his tactical display. The alien fleet was in chaos. Ships were turning in different directions, trying to track the human vessel. Their perfect formation was breaking apart as captains tried to understand what they had just seen. They're confused, sir. I'm reading multiple targeting locks, but they keep losing us. Their sensors aren't designed for this kind of technology. Lieutenant Amy Brooks looked up from her station. Sir, I'm picking up chatter on their command frequencies. They're asking their admiral for orders. Some captains want to retreat, others want to keep firing, Jake nodded. This was going exactly as planned. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled through fear and superior technology. They had never faced an enemy that could match their abilities. Their entire military structure was built around overwhelming force, not tactical flexibility. Amy, open a channel to their flagship. Channel open. Sir, Admiral Kekstara, this is Captain Morrison. We told you we came here to talk. We're still willing to do that. But we won't be intimidated by your weapons. The reply came back filled with anger. You dare use unknown technology against the Empire? Surrender now, or we will destroy your world. You're welcome to try, Jake said calmly. But I should warn you that we've been studying your tactics for 50 years. We know exactly how you fight. The question is, do you know how we fight? On the Zephyrian flagship, Admiral Kekstara was experiencing something completely new. For 3 centuries, the Admiral had commanded fleets that swept across space without resistance. Every battle had been a massacre. Every enemy had begged for mercy. The humans were different. They spoke with confidence. They acted without fear. Sir, said the tactical officer, the human ship is moving again. The Defiance was indeed moving. It accelerated toward the nearest Zephyrian cruiser, heading straight for the massive crystal ship. The alien vessel was 3 times larger and carried enough weapons to level a continent. The human ship looked like a minnow attacking a whale. Captain Morrison watched the distance close. Steve, are you ready? Targeting systems locked, sir. Quantum disruptors charged and ready. Fire. The weapons that shot from the Defiance looked nothing like the energy beams used by other species. They were invisible streams of particles that moved at near light speed. The quantum disruptors hit the Zephyrian cruiser's crystal hull and began to break apart. The molecular bonds that held it together, the alien ship shuddered. Pieces of its hull began to crack and fall away. The crystal armor that had protected Zephyrian ships for thousands of years was dissolving like ice in hot water. Within seconds, the cruiser's weapons were gone. Its engines were dead. The ship drifted helplessly in space. Target disabled, sir, Steve reported. No casualties detected. Their life support is still working. The Zephyrian fleet stared in shock at their crippled sister ship. The humans had not destroyed it. They had surgically removed its ability to fight while leaving the crew alive. It was a level of precision that should have been impossible, Admiral Kekstara felt. The first crack in a worldview that had lasted 3,000 years. The Empire's ships were supposed to be invincible. Their crystal armor was the strongest material known to science. No weapon should have been able to penetrate it so easily. How? The Admiral whispered. Sir? Asked the tactical officer. How did they do that? Our armor should have stopped anything they could throw at us. I don't know, sir. The weapon signatures don't match anything in our databases. It's like they're using completely different physics. They were. Human scientists had approached the problem of alien armor from a completely different angle. Instead of trying to overwhelm the crystal's strength, they had found a way to disrupt the forces that held it together. It was elegant, efficient, and terrifying in its implications. The Defiance moved to its next target. Another Zephyrian ship? Another precise strike? The quantum disruptors found the weak points in the crystal matrix and exploited them. The second ship joined the first in helpless drift through space. Captain Morrison opened another channel to the alien fleet. Admiral, we're not here to destroy you. We're here to show you that the age of ruling through fear is over. You can adapt to that reality, or you can keep fighting and lose more ships. The response was immediate. 3 more Zephyrian vessels opened fire at once. Energy beams that could crack planets converged on the human ship. The Defiance vanished again, reappearing behind the attacking vessels. The phase shift drive was working perfectly. Jake looked at his crew. They were performing like the professionals they were. Each person knew their job and did it without hesitation. This was what humans did best. They adapted. They improvised. They refused to give up. Tony, how's our power situation? Phase drive is drawing a lot of energy, sir. We can do maybe 6 more jumps before we need to recharge. The quantum disruptors are holding steady. Understood. Steve, pick your targets carefully. We need to make each shot count. The Defiance struck again. This time it hit the ship that had fired first. The quantum disruptors found their mark, and another Zephyrian vessel lost its weapons. The human ship was systematically dismantling the alien fleet, one ship at a time. Admiral Kexthara watched 5 ships become helpless in less than 10 minutes. The human vessel moved like nothing the Admiral had ever seen. It appeared and disappeared. At will, its weapons ignored every defense the Empire had developed. Most disturbing of all, the humans were holding back. They could have destroyed every ship in the fleet, but they chose not to. Sir, said the communications officer, we're receiving surrender requests from 7 ships. Their captains want to withdraw from the battle. Denied, Kexthara snapped. No Zephyrian ship has ever retreated. We will not start now. But the Admiral's voice lacked its usual certainty. For the first time in 3 centuries, Kexthara was facing an enemy that could not be defeated through superior technology. The humans were proving that innovation could overcome raw power. That strategy could defeat strength, the Defiance continued. Its deadly dance through the Zephyrian formation. Each attack was precise and devastating. Each shot removed another threat without killing anyone. The humans were teaching the galaxy a new way to fight. They were showing that wars could be won without genocide. Dr. Lisa Chun, the ship's science officer, monitored the alien communications. She had studied Zephyrian psychology for years, learning how their minds worked. What she was hearing now confirmed her theories. The Empire's strength came from absolute certainty. They had never faced defeat because they had never faced equals. Captain, Lisa reported, I'm reading massive stress indicators in their command structure. Their officers are starting to question orders. Some ships are breaking formation without permission. Jake smiled. The psychological warfare was working better than any weapon. The Zephyrians were discovering that their empire was built on an illusion. The illusion that they were the strongest, the smartest, the most advanced species in the galaxy. Humans were shattering that illusion, one disabled ship at a time. How many ships are still combat ready? Jake asked. 38, sir, but only half of those are maintaining formation. The others are trying to find better positions or attempting to retreat. The Admiral's perfect fleet was becoming a mob of confused and frightened ships. The rigid discipline that had held the Empire together for millennia was cracking under the pressure of facing an impossible enemy. An enemy that should not exist but clearly did. Jake opened one more channel to the Zephyrian flagship. Admiral, you've lost 5 ships and we're just getting started. Your fleet is falling apart. Your crews are losing faith. How many more ships do you want to lose before you're willing to listen? The answer came not from the Admiral, but from the Empire itself. Across the galaxy, news of the battle was spreading through subspace communications. Species that had been oppressed for thousands of years were learning that the Zephyrians could be beaten. The impossible was happening, and the universe would never be the same. Admiral Kexthara made the decision that would doom the Empire. Instead of trying to understand the human tactics, the Admiral ordered a full attack. All remaining ships were to fire at once. The combined power of 38 dreadnoughts would surely destroy the single human vessel. Captain Jake Morrison saw the energy readings spike across his displays. Every Zephyrian ship was charging its main weapons. In 30 seconds, enough firepower to destroy a star system would focus on his ship. It was exactly what he had been waiting for. "All hands, prepare for Combat Maneuver 7, Jake announced. "Tony, I need everything the phase drive can give us." Chief Engineer Tony Rodriguez worked frantically at his station. The experimental drive was already running hot. One more jump might overload the entire system. But the alternative was being vaporized by an entire alien fleet. "Drive ready, sir, but this is the last one. After this, we're stuck in normal space." "Understood." "Steve, are the kinetic accelerators ready?" Commander Steve Parker checked his weapons display. The kinetic accelerators were humanity's answer to energy shields. Instead of using beams or plasma, they fired solid projectiles at incredible speeds. The metal slugs moved so fast that they carried the energy of nuclear weapons. "All tubes loaded." "And ready, sir. Targeting the command ships. Fire on my mark." "Amy, start recording everything. I want the galaxy to see this." Lieutenant Amy Brooks activated every sensor and recording device on the ship. What happened next would be broadcast across known space. Every species would see what humans could do when pushed too far. The Zephyrian fleet fired as one. 38 beams of pure destruction converged on the space where the Defiance had been floating. The combined energy was enough to boil an ocean. The explosion lit up the entire star system. The human ship was not there. The Defiance materialized in the center of the alien formation. Surrounded by enemy ships, it hung in space like a predator in a flock of sheep. For a moment, everything was silent. Then Jake Morrison spoke the words that would echo through history. "Our turn." The kinetic accelerators fired in rapid sequence. 6 metal slugs shot out from the human ship, each one aimed at a different target. The projectiles moved at 90% of light speed. The Zephyrian shields, designed to stop energy weapons, offered no protection against solid matter moving that fast. The first slug hit the nearest dreadnought right in its main reactor. The alien ship's power core exploded, sending waves of energy through its crystal hull. The ship broke apart in seconds, its crew dead before they knew what happened. The second slug punched through another ship's command center. The bridge vanished in a flash of superheated metal and gas. The dreadnought lost all control and began spinning helplessly through space. The third, fourth, and fifth slugs found their targets with the same deadly precision. 3 more Zephyrian ships died in the space of heartbeats. Their crystal armor, their energy shields, their superior technology meant nothing against chunks of metal moving faster than thought. The 6th slug was special. Instead of targeting a ship's vital systems, it hit the flagship's communication array. Admiral Kexthara watched in horror as the ship's ability to coordinate the fleet vanished. The Empire's most advanced vessel was suddenly deaf and blind. "Commander." Steve Parker reloaded the accelerators with practiced speed. "Tubes reloaded, sir. Ready for second salvo." "Hold fire," Jake ordered. "Let them think about what just happened." The surviving Zephyrian ships were in complete chaos. 6 dreadnoughts had been destroyed or crippled in as many seconds. The human ship sat in the middle of their formation, untouchable and deadly. For the first time in their history, Zephyrian crews were afraid. Dr. Lisa Chun monitored the alien communications and felt something like pity. The Zephyrian language had no words for the concepts they were trying to express. They had never needed words for defeat, for retreat, for surrender. Their entire culture was built around the idea that they were the ultimate predators. "Captain," Lisa reported, "their fleet coordination is breaking down completely. I'm reading panic across multiple ships. Some crews are abandoning their posts." On the crippled flagship, Admiral Kexthara stared at the tactical display. Half the fleet was gone. The ships that remained were scattered and confused. The perfect formation that had conquered a galaxy was now a collection of frightened vessels with no plan and no hope. The admiral tried to understand what had happened. The humans had appeared from nowhere, using technology that should not exist. They had weapons that ignored every defense. They could vanish and reappear at will. Most terrifying of all, they fought with a precision that suggested they had planned for this exact battle. "Sir," said the tactical officer, his voice shaking, "what are your orders?" Kexthara had no orders. In 3 centuries of command, the admiral had never faced a situation like this. Every battle had been won through overwhelming force. Every enemy had collapsed when faced with imperial might. The humans were different. They seemed to welcome the challenge. Jake Morrison opened. "A channel to the entire Zephyrian fleet?" His voice was calm and professional, the voice of someone who had done exactly what he intended to do. "Attention, Zephyrian vessels. You have now seen what human weapons can do. We can destroy every ship in your fleet in the next 5 minutes. But we don't want to. We came here to talk, not to start a war. The choice of what happens next is yours." The response came from the most unexpected source. Captain Veltar commanded one of the smaller cruisers in the fleet. She had watched the human ship tear through the Imperial Navy like it was made of paper. She had seen technology that made her own ships look like toys. More importantly, she had heard something in the human captain's voice that no Zephyrian had ever offered: mercy. "Human ship, this is Captain Veltar of the cruiser Swift Retribution. I request permission to withdraw my vessel from this battle. My crew does not wish to die for the Empire's pride." Admiral Kexthara's voice cut across. The channel filled with rage. "Captain Veltar, you will maintain position. No Zephyrian ship retreats." "That is an order." "With respect, Admiral," Veltar replied, "you no longer have a fleet to command. Look around you. We are beaten. The humans have shown us what real power looks like. I will not sacrifice my crew for your ego." The Swift Retribution broke formation and began moving away from the battle. Within minutes, 3 more ships followed. The Zephyrian fleet was dissolving before the admiral's eyes. Jake watched the alien ships scatter and felt a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Satisfaction because the plan had worked. Sadness because it had required violence to make the aliens listen. Humans had hoped for peaceful first contact, but they had prepared for war. "Sir," Amy reported, "we're receiving multiple requests for safe passage. Half their fleet wants to leave." "Granted," Jake replied. "Any ship that wants to go can go. We're not here to slaughter people who no longer want to fight." Chief Engineer Tony Rodriguez looked up from his damage control board. "Sir, we've got problems. The phase drive is completely burned out. The kinetic accelerators are overheating. If we have to fight again, we're down to quantum disruptors only." Jake nodded. The Defiance had performed perfectly, but it was operating at the very edge of human technology. Every system was being pushed beyond its design limits. If the battle continued much longer, their advantages would disappear, but the battle was already over. The psychological impact of the human attack had accomplished more than any weapon. The Zephyrian Empire's greatest strength had always been the certainty of victory. That certainty was gone, replaced by the knowledge that they were not the most advanced species in the galaxy. Dr. Lisa Chung studied the readings from the remaining alien ships. What she saw confirmed her worst fears about Zephyrian psychology. The species had evolved as apex predators. Their entire sense of identity was built around being the strongest, the smartest, the most dangerous beings in their environment. Learning that humans were superior in every measurable way was causing a form of collective trauma. Zephyrian minds were literally shutting down rather than accept information that contradicted their core beliefs. Some crews were becoming catatonic. Others were abandoning their ships entirely. "Captain," Lisa said quietly, "I think we may have broken them. Not just their fleet, but their entire civilization. They're not equipped to handle the concept of being inferior to another species." Jake looked at the scattered remains of what had been the galaxy's most powerful fleet. Broken ships drifted through space. Crews that had once terrorized star systems were now fleeing in panic. The mighty Zephyrian Empire was collapsing before his eyes. "That wasn't our intention," he said. "We just wanted them to leave us alone." "I know, sir. But sometimes the consequences of our actions go beyond what we plan. The galaxy is about to change in ways we can't predict." Admiral Kexthara sat in the command chair of the crippled flagship and tried to process what had happened. The Empire that had ruled space for 3,000 years had been destroyed by a single ship, a ship crewed by primitives, who had barely learned to travel between stars. The Admiral's mind began to fracture under the weight of impossible reality. Everything that Kexthara had believed, everything that had given meaning to 3 centuries of life was now proven false. Zephyrians were not the ultimate species. They were not even close. In the depths of space, the USS Defiance hung motionless among the news traveled faster than light itself. Across the galaxy, subspace transmitters carried an impossible message. The Zephyrian Empire had been defeated. Not by another empire, not by an alliance of worlds, but by a single ship from a species that most had never heard of. Commander Helen Wade sat at her intelligence station aboard the Defiance, monitoring communications across dozens of star systems. What she was hearing made her hands shake. Rebellions were starting everywhere. Species that had been crushed under Zephyrian rule for thousands of years were suddenly finding their courage. "Captain," Helen reported, "the entire Andromeda spiral is going crazy. I'm picking up uprising reports from at least 40 systems. The Empire's local governors are sending panic calls back to the homeworld." Captain Jake Morrison nodded grimly. This was what they had feared might happen. Humans had not come here to start a galactic war. They had simply wanted to establish Earth's independence. Instead, they had accidentally triggered the collapse of the largest empire in known space. "What about the fleet remnants?" Jake asked. "Scattered to the winds, sir. Most ships have jumped to hyperspace. I'm tracking maybe 8 vessels still in the system, and they're all maintaining maximum distance from us." Among those 8 ships was the crippled flagship Eternal Dominion. Admiral Kexthara sat in the command chair, staring at displays that showed the Empire crumbling in real time. Each report brought news of another world in revolt, another fleet in retreat, another symbol of Zephyrian power falling to pieces. The Admiral's mind was fracturing. For 3 centuries, Kexthara had lived with absolute certainty. The Zephyrians were the apex species. Their technology was unmatched. Their military was invincible. These beliefs had not just been professional confidence. They had been the foundation of the Admiral's entire identity. Learning that humans existed, that they were superior in every way that mattered, was like being told that gravity flowed upward, or that stars were made of ice. The Admiral's brain simply could not process information that contradicted such fundamental assumptions about reality. "Sir," said the tactical officer hesitantly, "what are your orders?" Kexthara did not respond. The Admiral sat motionless, eyes fixed on the tactical display where a single human ship had destroyed the pride of the Empire. The officer repeated the question twice more before giving up. The Admiral who had conquered 100 worlds was gone, replaced by a broken mind that could not accept an impossible truth. Dr. Lisa Chun studied the psychological readings she was getting from the surviving Zephyrian ships. The data was disturbing. Across the alien fleet, crew members were showing signs of severe mental trauma. Some had become completely unresponsive. Others were experiencing violent episodes as their worldview collapsed. "Captain," Lisa said, "we need to be very careful here. Zephyrian psychology is more fragile than we thought. They've defined themselves as apex predators for so long that learning about us is causing massive psychological breaks." Jake looked at the scattered alien ships on his display. He had wanted to show them that humans would not be conquered. He had not intended to drive an entire species insane. "Is there anything we can do to help them?" "I'm not sure, sir. Their entire culture is built around the concept of superiority. Take that away, and they don't know who they are anymore. Some of them might recover, but others. Lisa shook her head. Others might never be the same. On the planet below, human cities were celebrating. News of the victory had reached Earth within hours. Humanity's first contact with an alien empire had ended with complete success. Zephyrians would never threaten Earth again. But the celebrations were premature. The real consequences were just beginning. Chief Engineer Tony Rodriguez worked frantically to repair the Defiance's damaged systems. The phase drive was completely dead. The kinetic accelerators needed major overhauls. Even the quantum disruptors were running at reduced capacity. If another enemy fleet arrived, the human ship would be in serious trouble. "How long for repairs?" Jake asked. "At least 6 hours for basic systems, sir. The phase drive will take days to rebuild, assuming we can find the right materials." "We pushed everything past its limits," Jake nodded. They had gambled everything on a single decisive battle. The gamble had paid off, but it left them vulnerable. If the Zephyrians had a second fleet nearby, or if other hostile species decided to test human strength, the Defiance would be in a very difficult position, but no other fleets came. Across the galaxy, species were too busy dealing with the collapse of galactic order to worry about testing the new human threat. The Zephyrian Empire had maintained peace through fear for 3,000 years. With that fear gone, old conflicts were reigniting everywhere. Lieutenant Amy Brooks monitored the chaos spreading through subspace communications. "Sir, it's getting worse out there. The Valkyrie and the Thornton Union just declared war on each other. The Crimson Sector is in complete anarchy. 3 different species are claiming the Omega Station trade hub." Commander Steve Parker studied his tactical displays with growing concern. "Captain, we might have a bigger problem than repair time. Every military force in the galaxy is mobilizing. Some of them might decide we're a threat that needs to be eliminated before we get stronger." It was a valid concern. The human ship had proven that it could defeat the Zephyrian Empire, but everyone could see that it was operating alone. One ship, no matter how advanced, could be overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Several species were already discussing the possibility of forming alliances to contain the human threat. Jake made a decision that would shape the future of human-alien relations. Instead of withdrawing to repair and regroup, he chose to stay and face the consequences of their actions. Humanity had broken the galactic order. Now they had a responsibility to help create something better. "Amy, open a channel to all ships and stations in the system. Broadcast on all frequencies." "Channel open, sir." Jake's voice carried across space to every listening device in the star system. His words would be recorded, translated, and spread throughout the galaxy within hours. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earthship Defiance. We came here to establish peaceful contact with the galactic community. We did not intend to start a war or cause the collapse of established governments, but we will not apologize for defending ourselves against those who would conquer us." He paused, letting the words sink in before continuing. "To all species listening to this message, humanity offers friendship to those who want it, trade to those who need it, and protection to those who ask for it. We have no desire to rule over anyone. But we will not be ruled by anyone either. The age of conquest is over. The age of cooperation can begin if you choose to make it so." The message was received by communication stations across 40 star systems. Within hours it had spread to hundreds more. Species that had lived under Zephyrian rule for millennia heard something they had never expected. An offer of partnership from someone strong enough to enforce it, but not everyone was ready to accept the new reality. On the Zephyrian homeworld, the High Council was meeting in emergency session. News of the fleet's defeat had reached them through the handful of ships that had escaped the battle. The reports seemed impossible, but they came from too many sources to ignore. Supreme Chancellor Mordith had ruled the Empire for 2,000 years. The ancient Zephyrian had overseen the conquest of 500 worlds. The idea that all of it could be threatened by a single ship from an unknown species was beyond comprehension. "How many ships survived?" Mordith demanded. 14 out of 47, Supreme Chancellor. The rest were either destroyed or disabled. Admiral Kexthara's flagship escaped, but the Admiral is unresponsive. Medical reports suggest complete psychological breakdown. The Chancellor's crystalline features, darkened with rage, impossible. Our fleet is invincible. Our technology is supreme. These reports must be false. But deep down, Mordeth knew they were true. The Empire's strength had always been an illusion maintained by the absence of real opposition. They had conquered primitive species and called themselves masters of the galaxy. Now they had met their match, and the illusion was shattered. What of the rebellions? Mordeth asked. Spreading rapidly, Supreme Chancellor. 63 worlds have declared independence in the last 6 hours. Our colonial governors are requesting immediate military support. Send the reserve fleets. Crush these uprisings before they spread further. Supreme Chancellor, the reserve fleets are refusing to deploy. News of the defeat has reached them. Many commanders are questioning whether the Empire can protect them from this new human threat. Mordeth felt the same psychological fracture that had claimed Admiral Kexthara. The foundation of Zephyrian existence was crumbling. They were not the supreme species. They were not destined to rule the galaxy. They were just another people trying to survive in a universe that suddenly seemed much larger and more dangerous. Back in the battle zone, the USS Defiance continued its repairs while the galaxy transformed around it. Human engineers worked alongside xenobiologists and diplomats to understand what they had unleashed. The ship had come to make first contact. Instead, it had become the catalyst for the greatest political upheaval in galactic history. Captain Morrison stood on his brie. 2 years had passed since the Battle of Saul's Edge, as historians would later call it. The USS Defiance still patrolled the Andromeda Spiral, but it was no longer alone. 3 more human ships had arrived from Earth, each one incorporating lessons learned from the first encounter with alien technology. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the observation deck of Harmony Station, humanity's first deep space diplomatic outpost. Through the transparent aluminum windows, he could see ships from dozens of species docked at the station's ports. Velkari traders worked alongside former Zephyrian colonists. Thordan diplomats negotiated with species that had been enemies for centuries. It was not the galaxy he had expected to create when the Defiance first dropped out of hyperspace 2 years ago. Dr. Patricia Bell, the station's chief xenobiologist, joined him at the window. She had been studying the long-term effects of the Empire's collapse on various species. The results were both fascinating and disturbing. How are our Zephyrian refugees doing? Jake asked. Patricia sighed. About half of them have adapted to the new reality. They're learning to see themselves as one species among many instead of the master race. The other half. She shook her head. Complete psychological breakdown. Some have been catatonic for months. Others keep insisting that the Empire will return and restore order. It was the same pattern they had seen across the former Empire. The Zephyrian species had defined itself by superiority for so long that many individuals simply could not function when that superiority was proven false. Entire colonies had collapsed into chaos when their populations learned about humanity. Admiral Kexthara was among the worst cases. The former fleet commander sat in a medical facility on Harmony Station, staring at the wall for hours at a time. The Admiral's mind had completely rejected the reality of human existence. Medical scans showed brain activity, but Kexthara never spoke, never responded to stimuli, never acknowledged the presence of other beings. Any progress with the Admiral? Jake asked. None. The mind just cannot accept that humans exist. Every time we try to show evidence of the battle, the brain simply shuts down the input. It's like watching someone choose insanity over admitting they were wrong. Jake felt a familiar weight of responsibility. He had not intended to destroy an entire civilization's sense of identity. He had simply wanted to protect Earth from conquest. But intentions mattered less than results, and the results had changed. The galaxy forever, Commander Helen Wade approached from across the observation deck. As Harmony Station's intelligence chief, she monitored the constantly shifting political situation throughout the spiral. The news she brought was rarely simple. "Captain, we're receiving reports from the Outer Rim sectors. The Crimson Alliance is mobilizing a fleet to attack the Valkyrie trade routes. They're claiming that human protection agreements are illegal interference in local conflicts." "How many ships?" Jake asked. 200, sir. All equipped with upgraded weapons and shields. They've been studying our tactics and developing countermeasures." This was the new reality of galactic politics. The Zephyrian Empire's collapse had created a power vacuum that dozens of species were trying to fill. Some welcomed human involvement and sought protection agreements. Others saw humanity as a threat to their own expansion plans. The humans had learned that being the most powerful species in the galaxy came with responsibilities they had never asked for. Every conflict, every trade dispute, every territorial claim somehow became a human problem. Species expected Earth to solve problems that had existed for centuries. "What's our fleet status?" Jake asked. "The Defiance is fully operational after the latest upgrades. The Independence and the Liberty are on patrol in the Beta sector. The Victory is escorting a humanitarian convoy to the refugee camps in the Gamma Quadrant. 4 ships to police an entire spiral arm." It should have been impossible, but human technology continued to give them advantages that numbers could not overcome. The phase shift drives had been perfected, making human vessels nearly impossible to target. The quantum disruptors could penetrate any known defense. Most importantly, human crews fought with a tactical flexibility that other species found impossible to counter. But Jake knew that technology alone would not be enough forever. Other species were learning and adapting. Some were forming alliances specifically to challenge human influence. The peaceful galaxy that humanity had hoped to create was turning into an arms race. Lieutenant Amy Brooks, now promoted to Harmony Station's communications chief, brought another report. "Sir, we're receiving a priority message from Earth. The President wants to speak with you directly." Jake nodded. He had been expecting this call. Earth's government was growing concerned about humanity's expanding role in galactic affairs. Politicians who had never seen an alien were making decisions about interstellar diplomacy. The disconnect between Earth and the frontier was becoming a serious problem. The communication chamber was shielded against all forms of electronic surveillance. When Jake activated the quantum entanglement transmitter, President Maria Santos appeared on the screen as if she were in the same room. "Captain Morrison," the president said, "I need a full briefing on the situation out there. Congress is asking hard questions about our involvement in alien conflicts. With respect, Madam President, the situation is complicated. We didn't choose to become the galactic police force. But when the Zephyrian Empire collapsed, someone had to fill the vacuum. If we hadn't stepped in, the entire spiral would have descended into chaos." "That's exactly what I'm worried about," Santos replied. "We're 4 ships trying to maintain order across hundreds of star systems. What happens when we face an enemy we can't defeat? What happens when Earth itself becomes a target?" It was a valid concern. Humanity had made enemies along with allies. The hegemony of 1,000 suns viewed human expansion as a threat to their own empire. The Machine Collective saw organic species as inherently inferior and marked humanity for elimination. Most dangerous of all, rumors suggested that remnants of the Zephyrian military were gathering in the Void sector, planning a campaign of revenge. "We're building alliances," Jake explained. "The Valkyrie Republic has offered to share their shipbuilding technology. The Thornton Union wants to establish joint defense agreements. Even some former Zephyrian colonies are contributing resources to our peacekeeping efforts. And in return, we're guaranteeing their security with 4 ships and crews that are already stretched to the breaking point." Jake could not argue with that assessment. Human crews were working around the clock to maintain order in an increasingly chaotic galaxy. The stress was beginning to show. Several officers had requested transfers back to Earth. Others were showing signs of combat fatigue after months of constant crisis response. "What do you need from Earth?" the president asked. "More ships, more crews, and more support for the diplomatic initiatives We can't maintain peace through military force alone. We need to help these species build stable governments and economic relationships. Congress is reluctant to authorize a larger fleet. The cost is enormous, and the public is starting to question whether galactic affairs are worth the investment. Jake felt a flash of anger. Earth's politicians were comfortable with the benefits of galactic trade and technology transfer, but they wanted someone else to pay the costs of maintaining the peace that made those benefits possible. Madam President, with respect, we broke the old system. We have a responsibility to help build something better. If we abandon that responsibility, the galaxy will tear itself apart. And eventually that chaos will reach Earth. The conversation continued for another hour, but Jake knew that Earth's government was not ready to make the commitments necessary for true galactic leadership. Humanity would continue to operate on the frontier with minimal support, trying to maintain peace through a combination of superior technology and diplomatic skill. After the call ended, Jake returned to the observation deck. The view had not changed, but his perspective had. Ships from dozens of species still worked together at Harmony Station, but the cooperation was fragile. It depended on human strength and human goodwill, both of which had limits. Dr. Patricia Bell was waiting. With another report? Captain, I've been analyzing the long-term psychological effects of our presence in the galaxy. The results are mixed. How so? Species that were oppressed by the Zephyrians are developing much healthier societies. They're learning cooperation, trade, and diplomacy. But species that were part of the Empire's power structure are struggling to adapt. Some are becoming more aggressive, trying to prove they're still relevant. Others are withdrawing completely from galactic affairs. And the Zephyrians themselves? Still fragmenting. About 30% have integrated successfully into the new galactic order. 20% are trying to rebuild some kind of limited empire in the outer sectors. The remaining 50% are essentially non-functional as a political entity. Jake nodded. It would take generations for the galaxy to fully adapt to the post-imperial reality. Humanity had the technology and military strength to maintain order in the short term, but building lasting peace would require patience, wisdom, and resources that Earth might not be willing to provide. A priority alert sounded throughout the station. Commander Helen Wade's voice came over the communication system. All senior staff to T.